Hello guys!
Hi guys!
Welcome to the first ever Faction Focus by Glasshammer Gaming. So welcome to this week's Faction Focus. It is the first ever one.
Yeah.
There we are guys. I'm Manny.
And I'm Aaron.
And before we go any further, if you like our content, please hit the subscribe button, notifications bell, just below Aaron over there, should be at the bottom of your screen,
Yep.
just so that you know each time we release our content, and then you get alerted so you don't miss out on any of your favourite content.
Of course.
Because we've got to be your favourite.
We are.
Or some of your favourite, right?
So much stuff. So,
Surely,
yeah.
maybe. Fingers crossed. And basically, this is a new form of content that we have decided to start up on. And we're changing a few things about Glasshammer Gaming, about the channel, and a few of the pieces of content that we do. And we thought this would be a really cool one because we've had a lot of people message us, say that they really like the way that we explain things and our trail of thought when we play, for example, battle reports, when we explain exactly why we have made each play that we make and stuff like that. And people really liked our reviews, and a lot of the positive reviews were for roster reviews. People really liked the fact that we analysed winning lists. That will still be a thing that's happening, but it will be for our members only now, for our elite members only. On Let's Talk Tactics, we'll be going through events and lists and stuff like that. If you want to get a piece of that, you know, the links are below. Go over to glasshammergaming.co.uk and join the elite. But today, we concentrate on our first ever faction focus. So this is a new piece of content we're doing, and essentially we're going to be choosing a faction each week, and we will run you through where it is in the current meta, like where on the scale it is in the current meta, which parts about the codex are good, which parts are bad, which legions or chapters or high fleets are good for that book, which ones are bad. And yeah, just to let you guys know maybe some of the key things that you should be using or looking out for if you play these things in an event, right?
Yeah. And please give us feedback if you like this kind of content.
Of course.
More, so.
Of course, yeah. It's all about the feedback, guys. If you have any recommendations for us, any feedback, anything that you would like us to include, maybe in the next Faction Focus or ones going forward, then this is your chance to say, man. Thank you very much. And let's go straight into it then. So, Aaron, if Aaron's got his coffee, guys, it's black coffee.
Always black
this
coffee.
Guy drinks black coffee, and I'm like, oh.
No sugar, nothing, just black coffee.
Elaichi tea, guys. Indian tea. That's it. The Indian tea is back. It used to be on Thursday Night Fights, and now it's back. So I got my Indian tea. Aaron's got his black coffee, plain boy. What a plain boy.
Love it, so good.
And yeah, let's learn about some Chaos Space Marines together.
Chaos Space Marines, yeah.
Now, Aaron's on the hype train for Chaos Space Marines at the moment.
Currently playing Emperor's.
Yeah, so I played Emperor's Children for a little while. I've gone off them now because I'm having loads of fun with my 1,000 Suns. Like, I'm loving my Zinch. 1,000 Suns plus Zinch Demons together is really cool. I'm having loads of fun with that. Maybe they'll be in a Faction Focus soon. You never know.
Never know.
And yeah, let's hit it off with this then. So Aaron has taken over the CSM.
Yes.
And he's basically going into them, and he likes the Emperor's Children. So first of all, where do they fall in the meta, bro? Where do you think Chaos Space Marines are in the meta
I think
now?
Chaos are one of the armies sitting quite at the top.
Okay.
I think they're very strong. I think they have really good options. I think they have very strong primary play. And they just have such raw output that they can...
For sure. Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think they are probably top 3.
Yeah, top 3.
I think they genuinely are, guys. And this is where you think, right, there's like... There's over 20 factions in the game, surely. It's like 27, almost 30 factions probably in the game at the moment. And I think they're definitely top 3, in my opinion. If you go to a competitive event with competitive terrain, whether that be UKTC terrain, Glasshammer terrain, or the foreground Vanguard tactics style terrain, I think in all 3 of the terrain formats, they are in the top 3.
And we're seeing that. We're seeing them do really good placings. Chaos are winning events. They are getting top 5s. They are doing really well.
Yeah. US Open.
US Open as well?
US Open, yeah, guys. If you look at the US Open that just happened, the Kansas City one, Emperor's Children finished fairly high in the rankings there. And that was on US Open GW terrain, right? Like their layout. So they have 2 different layouts, and they alternate between them. You play all the missions on layout 1. Day 1 is all layout 1, and then Day 2 it changes overnight, and then all the missions on Day 2 are played on Day 2, and so is the top cut. It's all played on. It's all played on the second layout. Now, if they're doing well on that layout, then they're also doing well on Glasshammer layout, and then they are also, because Josh Roberts and Vic VJ both did really well at the Glasshammer GT with that, and then also at Coventry,
Josh
the Coventry
really
Super
well
Major. And Josh went undefeated. And he came second only on points to a Necron player. You know, points. When we talk about points and high points, Necrons they're the king of scoring high points right now.
Yeah.
So he did extremely well, but also in the 2-dayer.
Yes.
Emperor's Children again did extremely well. So, sorry, he was in the 2-dayer. Also in the 3-dayer, the Super Major version. Chaos Space Marines doing really well as well.
And
so
Anthony Vanella doing really well with Emperor's Children as well.
Exactly, Anthony Vanella did really, really well. Go check out his list. He did awesome. And he's a very, very good player, and he's from across the pond. So we're seeing in the American meta, in the UK meta, on the GW layout, on the Glasshammer layout, and the UK TC layout. They're dominating. They're on the podium at pretty much every event, regardless of where it is, the meta of that place, and also the terrain. Because terrain on a tournament is probably the biggest factor that decides on which factions are good. And which units within those factions are good.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because those change. Now, that is the one thing that I guess we're seeing slightly with Emperor's Children, is that we're seeing different units be taken, or units being taken in different quantities based on the terrain layout that you're taking them in. But Emperor's Children are performing well across all terrain layouts. And like we're saying, terrain layouts we think is the biggest factor of what makes an army good or not. So here's with it, Aaron. Emperor's Children are good. So let's go. So now we know where they stand in the meta. Where CSM are in the meta. Why? Which legions are the ones that we're seeing at the top, Aaron?
I think it's very clear that Emperor's Children and Creations of Bile are the two best legions.
Standouts. They're the standouts.
They're the ones that are...
So if you had to pick standouts, it'd go with those
Emperor's Children, Creations of Bile. Do you agree? Do you think so?
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Those two. Those are the two that we're seeing everywhere. Emperor's Children we're seeing slightly more because, in my opinion, they have more options. Right? Like Creations of Bile are super strong.
The raw power is...
And that's the raw power. Why is that, Aaron? Where does the raw power come from? What do they do as a base?
The main thing is their Fight on Death is incredible. Fight on Death is incredible for any army that could have access to it, especially your entire army, and when you're Chaos. It's ridiculous. They get extra strength, they get extra
Don't you just love that they took that away from Harlequins?
Dark Harlequins removed it, and then they got it for Chaos.
I was baffled when I saw it. I was like, well, you've taken it off Harlequins, who were a medium hitting army. I thought, like strength 4 -2 is because they're dark, right?
-2,
yeah. So it was strength 4 -2 damage. Or is it -3?
-2 with the blades, -3 with the actual special weapons.
So a strength 4 -3 2 damage.
Yeah.
And that was too good.
That was too much.
For GW, that was too much, right? Having 4 attacks a model at strength 4 -3 2 damage was too much.
Yeah.
But putting it on a possessed unit where they have 5 attacks a model at strength 5 -2 2 damage. So because they've lost an AP, but they've gained an attack and a strength, that's okay now. Yeah. Apparently.
And it's the characters as well you can build in them as well, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
Some of the Chaos characters can carry armies themselves.
Exactly. And I really thought they were going to get nerfed.
I know many people who didn't want to play Creations of Bile because they thought that it would be nerfed. And
they'd get the Harlequin Dark treatment. Everyone thought they'd get the Harlequin treatment.
But it didn't. Chaos got essentially no changes in the data slate, which means that everything that was still is, and that includes the Creations of Bile.
And that's a massive buff, right? Like the ability to just fight in death with any unit in your army. With every unit, not just any unit, with every unit. If somebody charges 5 units in your army with a combat army, you're going to fight them back. So I think, like, when you play combat armies, it's pretty much you are at the advantage pretty much all of the time.
Yeah.
Because when you hit them, you're killing their units. And when they hit you, you're killing their units as well as losing your own. So in their turn, you're both dying, and in your turn, only they're dying.
Yeah.
So I think against other combat armies, you have a massive advantage.
Yes, because a lot of combat armies work off of trading. They want to trade their combat units to get their points, and to trade up to kill more of your opponent than you want to get killed for the game. And that can't happen against someone that fights on death, because you're giving up, but so are they, and it's a game that against a combat army just doesn't really seem or even feel winnable at times.
Yes.
You know.
Whereas on the other side of it, you've got the Emperor's Children.
Yes.
Now I think they're doing well because of the flexibility, because they're a bit more of an all-rounder. So the first thing I want to say is, I don't think there's very many great options for ranged warfare in Chaos Space Marines, right? I don't think they have very many good options to be able to fight at range. And one of the best things in the book are Noise Marines, because Blast Masters in a Noise Marine unit are very, very good. I think some of the best shooting in the game. Personally, I think they're some of the best shooting in the game, because Emperor's Children's base trait is that you get an additional point of AP for every 6 rolled to wound, both shooting and combat. So that's okay. It's fairly decent. But they also ignore all hit roll and weapon skill modifiers and ballistic skill modifiers. Hit roll, weapon skill, and ballistics modifiers are all ignored. So moving and firing a heavy weapon, they ignore it. Firing through dense terrain or firing up flyers, they ignore it. Things that make you -1 ballistic skill for shooting at them, they ignore it. They ignore literally all of that. So they hit on 3s no matter what they're shooting at, unless you have something that's like trans hit, so you can only ever hit it on
yes, they can be modified. They can't be modified, but they can be
capped. They can be capped by the things that are like, you can only hit me on a 4. That's not a modifier, so you will only be hitting on 4s. But they ignore all the minuses to hit and the minuses on ballistic skill and stuff like that in the game. So that's very good. So I think because they give you options, because they have some of the only good shooting that there is in the entire book, they can take those Noise Marines as troops. So you can take more than 3 Blastmasters, which no one else can do.
Of course.
So you can take more than 3 Blastmasters in your army. They become troops, so they gain OBSEC.
OBSEC is
which
huge
is absolutely huge.
Yep.
But because they are innately an elite data sheet, their leadership 9 on their sergeant, on your basic troop in Emperor's Children. And also you get 4 attacks a model with a chainsword. And that's pretty damn nasty.
Yes.
And then, you can have a Power Fist in the squad on the sergeant. And with an icon in the unit, you get +1 to hit in combat. So all your chainsword guys, you'll have like 3 guys with chainswords, your Power Fist sergeant, and then a Blastmaster.
Yes.
Blastmaster gives you great shooting. The chainswords get a bucket ton of attacks, and they pick up a lot of things because they're hitting on 2s. So it adds up the plink damage. And then you've got your sergeant in the squad, right? And your champion has got 4 attacks base. So it gets 4 attacks with a Power Fist. Now, the important thing to remember there is we said that you can ignore the modifiers, right? But it ignores any or all. So any modifiers. So you get +1 to hit from your icon, you can choose to take that. And then you're supposed to get -1 to hit from a fist, you just ignore that.
One.
So you go, right, I get the +1, so I'm hitting on 2s now with a Power Fist, and then I'll ignore the -1. So everyone else hits on 4s with Power Fists, they hit on 2s. So you've got reliable shooting, reliable combat, reliable staying power, because you've got 6 ablative wounds for your Power Fist and your Blastmaster in the squad, basically, with the 3 other guys. So you've got amazing stability, like durability and staying power as well. And then you just got loads of options, and they're OBSEC. So your basic troop is the most overall troop in the book. In my opinion, I think they're the ones that you take, is Emperor's Children. But then also, you've got reliable combat in front of it in form of like Terminators, Possessed, your characters, whatever you decide to take. And that's why the Emperor's Children, I think we're seeing a little bit more because they have more options. What do you think?
I think further to that, I think is all of the strat support they have as well. I think Emperor's Children have some of the best stratagems.
They have the best. They have the best stratagems.
Another thing as well, but before we get to that, the fact that the whole army is Marcus Slanesh means by default they all fight first, which is a huge buff to the army, because they may not have other marks. You may not get access to things like Nurgle marks for certain relics or anything, or Zinj, but you gain access to what is probably the best mark, I think, Slanesh, of all of them, which is really good. But the stratagems is what's huge. First one, fight on death. They have a fight on death for 2
They do have a fight on death.
So we've just gone on about how great Creators of Bile are for having it. And, you know, it's great when your entire army fights on death. But a lot of the times, you have 1 or 2 big units that you'd want to fight on death. Things like a Terminator brick or a possessed unit. They can still choose that. If they have the CP for it, they can still have that unit fight on death when it's needed.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That is huge. Because that can change games.
Yes.
Someone going in there thinking that, oh, I'm going to kill this unit. And then all of a sudden they lose their unit for doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It can be very scary. It can be very scary to be put in that position because some people, you know, you might not always plan for that as well. You might just go, you might forget that your opponent has this, and then you run in there and you hit them, and then they take out half your army for your trouble, and all of a sudden you're like, oh.
Because it's not as obvious. It's a bit more subtle. I think that's another thing with Emperor's Children. Their power is a lot more subtle. They have a lot of these little tricks, little abilities they can do that your opponent might not know everything, or you'll forget when you explain the beginning of the game or anything. Whereas Creatures of Bile do what they do, and then that's about it. You know?
Yes.
It's still really good what they do, but Emperor's Children, as you say, have that more finesse about them.
It's also worth saying the secondaries aren't bad. So they're an army that can do raise the banners very reliably.
Yeah, very
Just
good.
chaos in general. Are very good at doing raise the banners. Now, both these chapters that are good, these legions, they both encompass that in the style that they play. Because for Emperor's Children, those Blastmasters are good at standing on objectives, shooting, getting cover, all of that kind of stuff, and being a bit more patient in the game. And they should be using for counterpunch when someone gets too close. That's when the fists come out of the squads and they go in and do their damage. And you've got to get through all the things in front of them to get there, which is hard to do. And the Creations of Bile is even better at doing banners because they've got all these big combat units in front of their little units that are raising the banners and stuff. And if you kill them, they'll kill you too. Yeah. You know, like you kill them in combat, they kill you too. So getting through them all and having enough combat left to get into, and maneuverability left to get to the banners afterwards, it's quite hard.
Yes, absolutely.
It's quite hard. So both of them do raise the banners very, very well. They can do psychic secondaries because you can take spare characters who don't have essential powers but have great hitting power. Now, I'm talking about a key data sheet here, and that is the Demon Prince.
Yeah, the Demon Prince. Heretic Astartes.
The Demon Prince, because you will have a Sorcerer of Master Possession in your army anyway, because the powers that they have access to are fantastic.
Yeah, Malefic Discipline is so strong.
Exactly.
Really
in both Creations of Bile and Emperor's Children, you're seeing a Master of Possession because they can be used in that role of a buffer in both legions, right?
Yep.
So they're absolutely fantastic for that Master of Possession is. So, but that guy is there to buff for the whole game. So he wants to be using his powers the whole game. Now you're putting a Prince into your Creations and into your Emperor's Children because it adds some hitting power, some counterpunch hitting power, and he buffs things by giving them reroll ones. You could put the Mantle of Traitors on him so you can give reroll ones across the board and stuff like that. So you're taking him for this kind of dynamic role and his counterpunch because in Creations he can stand back up.
Yep.
But I think in both you can take Flames of Spite, right?
Yes, it's just a normal war.
Yeah, so you can take Flames of Spite. So you're actually very killy in combat. And Mantle of Traitors, I believe that's just a generic one, right? So you can take both of those as standard and use them as combat punch and a buffer. But then his power is not really essential. Like, you know, the Master of Possession's powers are essential to the way the army works. His are not. Yes. So he can be used to do a psychic secondary, which is very nice. Being able to do banners and a psychic secondary is fantastic. Now, where they struggle is the third one you normally want to be able to take from, the third category you normally want to be able to take from to be one of the top armies.
It's Battlefield Supremacy.
It's Battlefield Supremacy, yes. You took that right out of my mouth, Aaron. The Battlefield Supremacy is definitely the one because that's the one where it doesn't matter what your opponent has bought. You're not relying on your opponent to give you a secondary. It doesn't matter what they've bought, whether they've bought vehicles, monsters, infantry, or whether they've bought a mix. And they've gone, right, you can only get 7 on Aboard the Witch, 8 on No Prisoners, 10 on Assassinate, and that's it. That's all I give away. I don't give a maximum on anything.
People will structure their list a lot of times to not give anything out.
To avoid giving too many secondary points away. So, yeah, you see that. So, because of that, you'd want to be in the Battlefield Supremacy, but none of these are particularly great at getting a Battlefield Supremacy one. However, creations of Bile
This is the thing.
that have a great secondary.
Specimens for the Spider is an amazing secondary, and the best thing is it's in Purge the Enemy category. So this is a category that I think even if you yourself have said to try and avoid, because normally Purge the Enemy is quite a tough one to do. You have to kill your opponent. You have to go towards your opponent and kill them. And a lot of times you look at things like Assassinate. There's a lot of counterplay to it, but when it comes to this, it's such an easy secondary to complete. Mm-hmm. It's such an easy secondary. It's 2 points if at the end of the battle round, I believe, you've destroyed an enemy unit that's not a character or vehicle in combat, or a monster, I believe, character or monster, and you get 3 points for each character or monster in combat, and you can score a max of 5 for the battle round, which is so good.
Now, there's a few key elements to that, right? In the fact of, normally you want to avoid that category. Yeah. Because the secondaries in that category are like, bring it down. Yes. Which you only get for killing vehicles or monsters. Very big stuff, right? Yeah. Assassinate, which you only get for killing characters. Again, very specific, right? Now, Specimens incorporates it and is anything. Yeah. Pretty much, right? There's one thing that you can't score for. It's either a vehicle or a monster. Vehicles. You can't score for a vehicle.
If you face a vehicle army, you take Bring It Down.
Exactly.
So you have that option.
Because if you face an army where it's pure vehicles, like Imperial Knights, you can take Bring It Down. However, then if you play an army with anything else in it, you could take Specimens for the Spider. Yes. And it's like, before, I have to get to your characters. And to get to your characters, I need to kill like 5 units, then I can get into your characters. But if you kill 5 units over 5 turns for this, you just got 10 points.
You just got 10 points.
Because your normal units count. Yep. And that's why I think actually it's a very good one for them, because right now, if you don't come out and play the mission, if you don't come out and play the primary and try and deny your opponent primary and get your bonus, you're not getting things like bonuses, because quite a lot of them are like take an objective that you weren't holding, or take an objective in no man's land, or quite a lot of these kind of things, right? Or kill points and stuff like that. So if you're not coming out and engaging your opponent with these, they're going to start like running away with things. Yes. Right? Now, that's the cool thing about the secondary here, because if your opponent comes out to try and engage you on the primaries, for example, if they run 10 guardsmen onto the middle objective to steal it off you, you go, okay, you've done that. Now that's 2 points for me, because I'll kill that unit now. Right? And that's what I like about it, is it works on any unit. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason I would take it and consider it good, is because it's not so limited as Assassinate and Bring It Down. It works on a lot of different things. Now, Emperor's Children.
Yes.
Now, you were talking about their secondary. What do you think to it?
It's too situational.
It is, right?
To score well. It is. I've seen some people take it, even in high level play, even in top like events, in like the finals. People have tried Adorn the Canvas. If you want to go through it, the secondary, because basically you have to do everything better than your opponent.
Oh, do you? Everything?
You have to kill more in combat than your opponent kills of you. You have to shoot more than your opponent shoots of you. You have to hold more objectives than your opponent. And you have to have your characters kill more enemy characters than they kill. It's a lot of stuff.
But is all of this just 1 point?
1 point each.
See, now, I don't know what it is, but something about that is just shouting to me, why would you ever take this? So, if you just look at 2 key things in there, you kill more than your opponent shooting, or you kill more than your opponent in combat, right? And you get 1 point for each. Mm-hmm. 3 words. Grind them down. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, at that point, you're like, if I just take grind them down and you kill 1 unit in the turn, I kill 2, I've got 3 points on that.
We're playing a hybrid army that loves to shoot, loves to fight, and loves to kill. And this secondary, in the same category...
The secondary's fluffy, right?
In the same category, splits grind.
Yeah.
Which...
yes, it's in No Mercy, No Respite. We have the Liber Hereticus.
The Liber Hereticus.
Right here.
It's in the same category, and yes, you can score another couple of points, but overall, it's not gonna count to much. And the one secondary I do want to talk about is Chaos. And obviously, we've had varying results, is the Long War. The Long War, I think, is the one secondary that some people have talked about. I mean, and I think in the same category, I would go for Grind or Long War before I went for it on the canvas.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Why? Tell us about it.
So Long War gets points by flipping objectives. By taking units off of objectives, you get 2 points, or you get 1 point for each one you kill. Yeah. So I think that playing something like Long War allows you to do what you want to be doing in the mission, and getting points for it, which is taking primary off your opponent. You want to be flipping objectives.
The whole engaging that we were just talking about, like engaging somebody on the mission.
You want to be playing that mission, and you're being rewarded for doing that.
Yes.
And even if you just shoot units off of objectives, you're getting points as well for it. So a lot of times, if you're struggling for a secondary as Chaos, I think Long War is actually a secondary that I would definitely consider.
Yeah.
We played a game recently, and I believe I took Long War as well. It was one that I thought I could score on. And I think that a lot of Chaos armies are doing the same thing. They're taking Long War as that third option if they don't really have a third one.
That's the thing. It is quite good because, like we just said, if your opponent doesn't come out and play the mission against you, they're going to lose anyway. So if they come out and try and take those like midfield objectives, they're very much in range for you to go over there and deal with them, right? So if you take them off the objective, you get, is it a point? And then if you hold it, you get 2 points.
Up to max of 3.
So when they come for those no man's land ones that are getting them primary bonuses and things like that, they're also giving you the chance to also get the primary bonus yourself, but also get a secondary.
Yes.
So they kind of play into you that way. So you're leaning into engaging with your opponent, which is quite good.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And that's what we think, guys. Those are the 2 best legions.
Yes, these are the
best legions in the book. So we were talking about data sheets earlier.
Oh, yes.
And then you mentioned a few data sheets. So I was talking about the Demon Prince.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought how good the Demon Prince was. And I think the Demon Prince is good for both of them. Or, like, it works really well in both. And also the Master of Possession we spoke about.
Absolutely.
There. Also, again, works for both. The Master of Possession is great in Creatures of Bile and great in Emperor's Children with the same powers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The same powers, you know, like the Feel No Pain power, Delightful Agonies for putting on Slanesh units. That's fantastic. The Bringing a Model Back, the Pact of Flesh.
Pact of Flesh is
also
so
incredible. Good. And then the Mutated
Invigoration.
Invigoration, Mutated Invigoration, that one. To buff the toughness of them. You know, when you're making them tougher, you're putting the Feel No Pain on them, you're healing them and bringing a model back. All the
synergy for units that can be made.
Yeah, all these buffs across both legions are fantastic. So both the Demon Prince and the Master of Possession there. Now, are there any units that you think are also fantastic in these legions? What else is making these 2 legions? We've gone through why they're good. Like what's making them good rules wise, but which data sheets most exploit that? Now we spoke about the Noise Marines for the Emperor's Children, and of course they're not as powerful in creations. Are there any that you think?
Well, I think the first one is one that we're seeing quite a lot of, and that is the Terminator.
Brick.
Chaos Terminator, the 10-man brick. When I say brick, we mean 10 Terminators.
A 10-man unit, like the max size unit,
So you can do it with Possessed, you can do it with Chosen, but the best, I think, is the Terminators. All of these buffs we're talking about, everything can go on this one unit. And especially, there's a stratagem that you can take for Chaos called, I believe it's Trophies of the Long War. And you can give the Sergeant of a unit a relic from a list, and one of them is the Black Rune of Damnation.
Yeah, there's a specified list right, of a few that you can take on the Sergeant.
And one of them is the Black Rune of Damnation, and it gives the bearer's unit -1 to wound, -1 to be wounded, which is an amazing buff to put on a 10-man brick of Terminators.
Yeah, that's it, man.
That's huge.
And because it's on your Sergeant, and it just says whilst the bearer is alive, right? It's like, okay, the Sergeant's pretty much always the last guy to die, right? So that's that's a great, just -1 to wound on a unit permanently. Yeah. For 1 CP on your army list is fantastic.
Because
fantastic.
For both of these legions, we end up with a unit that can have a 5-up Feel No Pain, toughness 5, -1 to be wounded. We'll get to another buff in a second that they can also have. And then they can either fight first and have all of these extra stratagems that they have in Emperor's Children, or fight on death, extra strength as well, extra movement from Creatures of Bile. And both of these chapters have access to Advance and Charge as well, so you can have this Terminator brick with a lot of maneuverability, being a real threat on the board. Linking to that, the one data sheet I wanted to talk about was the Dark Apostle, because he is
because he goes hand in hand with the brick.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's the priest of chaos. He does a blessing at the start of the command phase.
A pact
or whatever.
A demonic pact.
And the main one that we're seeing, pretty much the only one we're seeing, is Illusionary Supplication.
Yes.
Which is you can only be hit on a 4-up and you cannot reroll hits.
Which is insane. On a unit that's also then, like we said, toughness 5 with -1 to wound. Just the amount of attacks that make it through to the take saves stage is limited massively.
Yes.
Right?
It becomes to a stage where a lot of armies don't even see it worth targeting this unit. But then you end up with this 10-man unit of Terminators that, especially in something like Emperor's Children, can have all these power fists that don't take negatives for it, that are running up the board at you. And if you don't target it, it's going to hit your lines. But you kind of don't want to target it because you're not going to do much with it. Because you can't hit it well, then it's hard to wound it. Then they have good saves because they're Terminators with 2 up and Armor of Contempt. And they have a Fear No Pain as well. So it becomes really hard to deal with these.
It does become really hard. It does become really, really hard to, because a minute ago we said the Blastmasters are basically some of the best shooting in the game, right? Imagine having 4 units of Noise Marines with a Blastmaster in each. Even then, you probably wouldn't want to shoot someone else's Terminator brick. Right? Like if you hit the mirror match, and you were playing against one of these Terminator units with Illusory on there, say they had Illusory Supplication on them, they have the +1 toughness, and they have the -1 to wound, because that's just the Black Rune.
Standard, yeah.
So you go to target them. Say you have 4 Blastmasters, right? You got 12 shots. Say you're in the 3 damage zone, or the 3 or 4 damage zone. So each hit's gonna do something big. So you look at it and you go, right, we're only getting 6 hits.
Yep.
Because that's not a modifier.
No, it's
just like you're capped at 4s. It's no modifier. It's not -1 to hit. It's you can only hit me on a 4. So you go from hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s to just 4s. So, and this is some of the most reliable shooting in the game. So you only get 6 hits. Now all of a sudden, because they're toughness 5 and they're -1 to wound, you're winning on 4s.
Yeah.
So again, then you just go 3 wounds.
3 wounds.
And then you go, oh, if 2 of these Terminators are on terrain, like gaining the benefits of light cover, which pretty much is very easy to do, guys. Like you can run these 10-man Terminator brick around the board where the majority of them are in a place where they need to be, and like the back 3 are on a ruin, because then they get cover saves, they get light cover, and all of a sudden they got a 1-up save, they ignore your first AP, and then you're -2, so they have a 3-up save against Blastmasters. So you make me take 3 saves, I should only fail 1.
So if
I do have a CP reroll. I could fail none. And also I could have my 5-up Feel No Pain up,
which means you should maybe not even
kill 1 Terminator
with 4 Blastmaster shooting.
That's some of the best shooting in the game. That's why Emperor's Children are doing so well in the meta, right? One of the main reasons for Emperor's Children absolutely smashing it and killing out there right now is Blastmasters, and even they are not worth shooting at this brick with Illusory Supplication up. It's just that Dark Apostle is just worth his money.
He's key.
Worth his points.
Absolutely.
He's bang for his buck. He's really, really good.
Yep.
And then, because his buff goes off in the command phase, I don't think enough people talk about that either. Because his buff goes off in the command phase, he can then go off and move somewhere, raise a banner, do an action, something like that. He can. Like most of the characters can't, because their buffs are like auras and things like that.
He does his thing and that's it.
Just does his thing in the command phase and goes, oh, I'm going to go raise a banner over there, lads. You guys go. You got your buff, now go. Right? So I really like that about him as well. I think that's fantastic. And this -1 to wound we're talking about with the Black Rune. If you had that just as a generic strat, you'd use it all the time. I mean, look at the Scorpec Destroyers. They have a strat like that.
Whirling Death.
Whirling Death.
It is, yeah.
-1 to wound for a CP.
Always use that. Always use that.
Every time they get hit, you use it. And just to pay 1 CP, just on your army list, and the unit has it for entire games, is bonkers to me. It's so good. That is one thing I am expecting to get hit.
Yes, I believe it's going to be removed from the Trophies of the Long War stratagem list.
Yes, basically, I think it'll get removed from the choices that you can put on a unit sergeant.
I think on something like a Lord Discordant or on a Demon Prince, it's cool. It's something you can look to. -1 to wound is quite nice if you want to create a bit more of a defensive guy, and that's fine. But it doesn't become egregious like it does when you have a whole 10-man.
When you have a whole 10-man brick.
And I think it's, instead of just saying it only affects the sergeant, it's much easier just removing it from the list and saying that you can take all these other relics, but you can't take this one. And I think that's what they will.
I think that'd be a good fix.
Absolutely.
That'd be a great fix.
Yeah.
There we have it then, guys. And are there any data sheets that you think work well for one of those, but not the other one? Other than obviously Noise Marines. Would you say that there's a data sheet that works well for one of them and doesn't work well for the other one?
I think it's interesting. So I think one of the data sheets that I know you like, that I'm not sold on Emperor's Children, but I am in Creations of Bile, is the Warp Talons.
Warp Talons, okay.
So Warp Talons, I think the issue with them is 140 points for Unit 5, and they get Wheels to Ruin, which is really powerful. But they're Strength 4, and they only damage 1. In Creations of Bile, it becomes strength 5, and strength 5 reroll to wound.
Strength 4 to strength 5 with
really
4 rerolls to
nice.
wound is a big what's it called? Like it's a big bracket to go past. It's a turning point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, strength 4 to strength 5 is a big turning point.
It's a big turning point, and the fact they get extra movement as well is always nice.
Of course.
And fight on death, they can go forward, like you say. They could raise a banner and they could defend that banner, because even if you come to try and take it down, if you try and fight them, they will fight on death and they will kill you. I think Emperor's Children, it's nice. Just to have the extra unit to be a bit fast, but I don't think they really get a lot of the benefits.
That's the thing. I totally agree with you. I think that's a datasheet that's a lot better in Creations of Bile than it is in Emperor's Children. The Warp Talons. The only reason that I take like 1 unit of Warp Talons when I play Emperor's Children is because I think Raise the Banners is such a crucial secondary for this faction that having a unit that moves like 12 inches and is able to raise a banner after that is nice to have. That's why I play 1 unit of my Emperor's Children, but they're actually very good in Creations, right? So
very good unit.
Yeah, that's a thing. One data sheet that I think is great in both, but better in Creations of Bile again, is Possessed.
Possessed, yeah.
I think having 1 unit of Possessed, maybe 2, like small ones in Emperor's Children can be good. 2 if you're playing on like GW terrain, where you can hide all of them and they've got good staging options and stuff like that. But in like UKTC, like one unit of Possessed.
I'm using 1 in my list.
Yeah, you're using 1, right? Yeah, it's a nice little thing to have, right? On Glasshammer terrain, UKTC terrain. I think it's cool to have as a little tool. Counterpunch and stuff like that. But in Creations, I've seen people take 30.
Oh yes,
and they work well.
They work very.
This is the thing. Like I'm not saying they don't, but they in Creations of Bile they're very good because they can hit your enemy just as well as the Emperor's Children ones.
Yes.
They move a little quicker because they actually move 10.
Yeah.
Base move 10 with Creations. They move 10 in charge, which is fast.
Yeah.
They hit like a brick, but also against, like we say, against other combat armies, the one thing that they really don't want to hit in a Chaos Space Marine thing is Possessed.
Yes.
They go into Possessed and they kill half of them. The Possessed then munch their whole squad back, you know, because the half that died get to fight, then the half that are still alive pile in and they fight as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's nasty, and I think they're just better in Creations than they are.
And another breaking point as well is that they're strength 6 in Creations. There are a lot of toughness 5 units as well in the game.
Yes.
Crisis Suits, Scorpic Destroyers, other Possessed.
Yeah.
So being able to be strength 6 is also really nice as well, which they only really get in.
That's another break point, like
break
another point to go over, like the toughness 5 to toughness, strength 5 to strength 6 barrier.
Well. Both 4 to 6 is a huge thing.
It's pivotal, yeah. 4 to 5 and 5 to 6 are really really big in the game right now. It's so that's quite important actually. That's a good point that you make there. And then also one guy that I think is better in Emperor's Children than in Creations of Bile is Abaddon.
Oh, yes.
Now Abaddon I think is just phenomenal.
Yes.
He is insane for his points, guys. We do recognize that, right? Like he's dirt cheap for what he does. Yeah. And he's an absolute beast.
He's an animal.
Tank-wise, like tanking stuff, the stayability. I call it stayability. Staying power and durability. So I call it stayability. That's the one. His stayability is badass. His output is phenomenal. Yeah. He can go into things and one-shot them on his own. Absolute beast badass is Abaddon, right? And he's 300 points.
For a steal at 300 points. Absolutely.
He's infantry.
He's infantry. He's 9
that's what gets me.
It's
a lot of people are saying that, to be honest, he's like Gazgul level points.
Yeah.
Morven Val level points. Gilliman level points. So everyone keeps comparing him to Gilliman, Gazgul, and Val. And saying he's basically them, but his rules are better.
Yep.
And then he's infantry.
And his infantry, yeah.
Now, loads of people are saying his points need to go up, right? His points need to go up. Now, I actually think he would still be good.
Yeah.
So you'd use him. Maybe not absolutely incredible anymore, but I think he would still be good enough to take if they just removed infantry. If they also made him a monster.
You know, I actually
like Gilliman,
think the point increase might make him still be taken a lot more than if they changed to infantry.
Then if they took the infantry
I think the better nerf would be taking away infantry, but keeping his points. So you can still use him. He's still only 300, but it loses some of how stupid he can be, that he can walk through walls, be character protected.
I think maybe I'd have him at like 320. I'd have him at like 320, up his points by like 20, 30, have him at 320, 330 points and take infantry away. Because then he's 2 levels above Val.
Yeah.
Like 20 points, then 20 points. He's 40 points more than Val. He's 280. And he's like a similar thing, but his abilities are just better than hers. And then Guilliman and Ghazghkull are both 300. Now, Guilliman can be character protected, and Ghazghkull has got the phase cap. Now, Abaddon's got both. Yeah. So that's why I think he should be more than them, because he's character protected, but also has the phase cap. So I think he should be slightly more than them, 20, 30 points. But then he's also a monster. He also can't go through walls. And that's one of the main downsides of Guilliman, Ghazghkull, and Val, is that they can't just go wherever they want. They have to go around terrain. And I think if Ghazghkull had to do that, he'd be fine. Maybe even keep his points exactly the same. Because things like Ghazghkull moves like 7 or 8 inches or something like that, right? But I think Val as well. I think Val moves 8. She might only move 6, but I think Val moves 8. I think Ghazghkull moves 7 or 8, but Abaddon moves 6.
Moves 6, yeah.
So going around walls would hurt him quite a lot. So maybe don't even change his points. Just leave him at 300, but take infantry away.
A lot slower.
And I'm telling you, man, that would make a big difference, I think, to how many times we see Abaddon, and also how effective he'd be in the game. I think maybe if you took infantry away from him, he'd be a lot less broken. Because at the moment, guys, he's in everything.
He's in everything. Every chaos that can take him, Chaos Knights, Chaos Space Marines, even some demon lists are taking Abaddon. Due to his Agent of Chaos rule, he's everywhere. And I think it's a bit much for the internal balance of the game.
But actually, I do think he's better in Emperor's Children than in Creations of Bile.
I think, Creations of Bile, their trait is so good that I think honing into the trait is great.
Yes.
Whereas Emperor's Children, their units and the things you can do with them are so good, and he buffs that, and he makes that better. Yes,
he does. With like the reroll 1s on your Blastmasters and stuff like that, sitting in the middle of like 4 units of Blastmasters, being a reserved counterpunch after your Terminators go down, he can go out. So I really like him in that. Yeah. So that's my opinion. So that's really cool, man. We've gone through all the units there that are good, the strats that these 2 legions have and stuff like that. And we've spoke, they're at the top of the meta. These guys are at the top of the meta, and hopefully we've run you through and you have a better understanding there of how Chaos Space Marines work and why they're doing so well in the meta right now. Now, Aaron.
This fun part.
The fun part. Here comes the fun part. So you spoke about that. What to avoid, mate?
What to avoid
when playing Chaos Space Marines? What do you think is not good in this book?
So, in a competitive setting, I think stay away from most of the vehicles, if not all of the tank-looking vehicles. I think...
Pretty pants.
Pretty pants.
They're pretty pants.
All Predators, even Land Raiders and Rhinos and Vindicators. They've made them a bit better. They're just not worth their points. They're not worth it.
There's too many better options.
And
you've got to think as well, you're playing a Strike Force game.
Yep.
You can't fit everything in there. You can't go... Because... If you go, Abaddon's cool.
Yep.
I really like him. I need a Demon Prince and a Master of Possession Dark Apostle to buff the other units I want to take. I'll have a little Terminator unit or a big Terminator unit in the army, a couple of Noise Marines and stuff like that as an Emperor's Children player, a unit of Cultists maybe to be a cheap little throwaway and stuff. And then you look down at your points and you go, oh, that's like 1,700 points.
I've got like 300 points left.
I've got
1 unit possessed I can fit in there and some spawn.
Yeah, something like that, right? And so you can't fit everything.
No.
By the time you've made the base of your creations exactly the same, you go, right, I'm going to put 4 or 5 decent combat units in, 2 or 3 decent combat characters, and then the few support characters, and you go, now I've got like 200 points left. That's the thing. Once you put in the base units that make these legions play well, don't really have very many points left. So you have to choose what goes in the list.
Yes.
And at that point, you look at things like a Land Raider and go,
you essentially look at
what is a Land Raider worth,
a third of the book and just go, I need this stuff and I can't fit in this stuff. And they just can't.
It's quite unfortunate though, isn't it? It's quite unfortunate that you there's a load of units in there that you'd like to see.
Yeah.
That you just don't. I mean, who doesn't want to see Khorne Berserkers?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like how cool are Khorne Berserkers and stuff like that? But they're not worth it.
No,
there's better things. Obliterators. That's what I would say. I would say if you're looking to play Chaos guys, other than really Blastmasters, I would say stay away from from leaning into shooting.
Yeah, there's apart from Emperor's Children and Blastmasters, there's not really that good shooting for the
There's
points
one
in the book.
There's one that's worth noting, guys. It's 4-draw unit.
Yep.
The Decimator.
The Decimator. Decimators can be very strong.
The Decimator Dreadnought can be incredibly powerful with the Soul Burner petards. If you're a big fan of those guys, Black Legion. The next tier down. So I do just want to have a really quick look into the tier, guys, here of Legion.
Yes.
The tier of Legion.
Tier of Legion.
The tier of the Legions. Now, Emperor's Children and Creations we think are the top tier.
Top tier.
They are the top tier in the book. If you break them down to top tier, and then the ones that are good, the ones that are average,
and the bad.
And the bad, the ones at the bottom. Top tier, the standouts, Emperor's Children, Creations of Bile.
Easy.
I think that's easy, right? Then the good ones, the ones that are still good, right? Yeah. I would say are Word Bearers.
Yeah.
And Black Legion.
Yeah.
Word Bearers and Black Legion.
All the buffs from Abaddon. Word Bearers get full rolls to hit. There's lots of good stuff they have, but they're just not quite the top.
Yes. So those are the ones that I think are good. Then you have your average. The ones that are, they can lose some games, they can win some games. They might not have all the best options and stuff like that. And in that bracket is where I think you can place Iron Warriors, Red Corsairs, those kind of armies. And then you have the bad tier. The bad tier. And unfortunately, I think that there comes to, for me, the worst one is
Alpha Legion.
Alpha Legion. That's the one. Legion. The worst one is Alpha Legion. For me, the worst one is Alpha Legion.
Alpha Legion is the worst.
And there's another one.
Night Lords.
Night Lords.
Night Lords and Alpha Legion are the two weakest legions, I believe.
Yeah.
I
think Night Lords are slightly better than Alpha Legion.
Yes,
I think Alpha Legion are just the bottom of the bottom. If there was another tier at the bottom called like Chuckers in the Bin tier, that's where Alpha Legion are right now.
They got a lot of shenanigans that don't account to anything really, which is the best. Your opponent will do all these cool things. Shenanigans. They'll do everything and then just lose, and that's basically.
They have a load of shenanigans which basically don't equate to anything. That's a nice way of putting it, bro. I quite like that. Okay. And I think that's where the tiers stand right now. That's the pecking order of the legions, if you like. So take of that what you will. You know. Maybe I don't know. Aaron's editing this video, so maybe he's just put a little tier down the side there now. As maybe you're looking and there's maybe he has. Maybe there's a little tier list going down going down the side of the page there that you can see. But yeah, I think that's basically everything about this book that's good. What's bad? You know, like what to avoid. What to take, which legions are the best, which legions are the worst, why the legions that are performing well in events are performing well in events, and the characters and some of the key data sheets there to make it all work, and their secondaries and which ones are good picks for them, and the fact that they work on all terrain. That's great. That is such a good faction right now, right? I think it's brilliant. And you know what? The book overall, I like the book overall.
I do like the book.
I like the book overall. I think a lot more of the army books that come out should be like this. You know, they should have multiple things that are good, because like we've just said there, right? Black Legion and Word Bearers, you can take and you can win events. You can win events. You can do quite well and you can win events. Well. Creations of Bile and Emperor's Children have the best chances of events. They are winning events. So they were like, what I like about that, I'm trying to say, is I understand not every legion is great, but that's
the game. The game has too many things for anything to be good.
That's the case always. But in quite a lot of the books in the past, we've had this thing where one legion or one chapter or one hive fleet, shall we say, have absolutely dominated the book. Yeah. They've been the go-to one in the book. You take them, and that's the only way to really do well, right? That's not the case for these.
No.
You've got multiple options, multiple different legions that can all play the current rule set very, very well. And, you know, if you practice with your army, if they're run by a really good, skilled player, they can do well. Yeah. And they have multiple things that do that. That's what I like about this book. So I would hope for more books to be like this in the future.
Yes, absolutely. I think books like this is what we should be seeing going into the rest of this edition and forward. Yeah. Because as you say, there's lots of options. There's nothing overly strong. There's nothing overly weak. It's just a nice all-round book that can do really well in games, which is
for sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right. Well, we've come to the end of this first ever faction focus.
Yeah.
And I've come to the bottom of my cup of tea. So what perfect timing. We paced ourselves brilliantly there. And like we say, guys, this is the first time that we're trying this specific piece of content. So please leave your feedback and let us know how you found it, what you thought about the, the layout of it, and if there's anything that you think we could improve on or anything that you'd like to have us talk about when we talk about future factions, please let us know in the comments below. We'll be responding to comments as best we can.
Yes.
If the editing is not that great, blame him. Cut him some slack. This is his first ever video that he is trying to edit, so hopefully this should be quite cool. And I hope you've had a great listen. Like we said at the start, guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, then please hit the subscribe button, notifications bell in the bottom corner over there, so you know every time we release our content and you don't miss out on any videos that we put out in the future. And if you enjoy what we do here on the channel and you'd like more exclusive content, amazing discounts off our web store, or if you'd just like to support us, then head over to glasshammergaming.co.uk and join the elite. The link is in the description below. And we'll catch you next week with another faction focus. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Live stream Warhammer 40k games, meta-analysis, tournament reports. Hi guys, I'm Manny. I am one of the co-founders of Glasshammer Gaming. I'm one of the current top 5 ranked ITC players in the world, and I play for my international team, Team England, and we are the current reigning world champions. So we started Glasshammer Gaming at the start because we play a very high level, and we realized that a lot of content creators online were more narrative and not really focused on the competitive aspect of the game, and we thought it'd be really cool if we made battle reports, live streams and tactics videos to help players improve in their competitive game, and also for people who are looking to start getting into competitive play, help them along the way and give them some tips. We also have an elite service, and if you join up, you get more in-depth meta-analysis, competitive tournament reports, and even bigger discounts on our store, which are incredible in the first place, and you're basically getting some of the best discounts in the world. If you join up, you also get access to our Discord server, where there are lots of like-minded people who also want to be very competitive and play to the best of their ability, and you'll be added in there with all of them. There are different channels for every army, every faction, so you can talk to other players who play the same armies as you and improve together.